Think about this. When you really know somebody, you don't need them to prove themselves every time you see them. If it's your best friend, you take their word for it. If it's someone you trust in business, you don't ask for receipts every 5 seconds. But if you don't really know them, you're always asking for proof. The same thing happens in our faith. In John chapter 14, Jesus is having this exact conversation with his disciples. They believe him, but they don't fully trust him yet. Philip even says, "Show us the Father, and we will be satisfied." And Jesus answers and tells him, "If you've seen me, you have actually seen the Father." So that leads the question, what does it really mean to know him? So if you're just now joining me, we've been discovering what Jesus talked about in John chapter 14, where he starts off saying, "Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me," right? So what we uncovered there is he wants us to believe him at his word, right? And then from there, he moves us to faith when he tells us about the many matches that he's going to have, and that the place where he's going to prepare for us, when faith comes, doubt is not too far behind. Where doubt in Thomas literally asks him, like, how will we know the way? How will we know the place that we're headed to is the right way? And Jesus says, listen, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. He literally responds with his identity. All right. And if you want to know more of how we got to what we're going to talk about today, all right, you need to start right here with this video. But today, I want to focus on John 14:7, where Jesus said, "If ye had known me, ye should have known my Father also. From henceforth ye know him and have seen him." Philip said unto him, "Lord, show us the Father, and it suffices us." Jesus said unto him, "Have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? He that has seen me has seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, show us the Father? Believest thou not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me. He doeth the works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me. Or else believe me for the very work's sake. So Jesus is literally saying, hey, trust me. But before you even trust me, dude, we have been together for the past 3 years, and you are literally like, you don't know who this is, like, who is making this happen? Like, who am I in cahoots with? Like, who is the one behind the scenes that's making all things like happen like this? It's because he's making it happen. But of course, we don't want to go too far deep there. We have to focus on this word known. Like, if ye had known me, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to know God? Because I get curious. I look at a text and I stare at it. And if you look at known, known is used, or know is used like 6 or 7 times through the next 3 verses of scripture. And so that put me on track to be like, okay, what is God really saying? So, of course, if we want to know what God is really saying, we want to go back to the first time we see the word known or the word new. And that takes us back to Genesis 4:1, where it says, "And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord." And to know in that context of scripture, in the Hebrew language, is the word yada, which is to know by experience, right? So to know by experience, which is experiential, but also you realize in that context of scripture that they, Eve and Adam, were actually having sexual relations. Yes, boys and girls, they were having sex. All right. So to have sex in those times, it was to know that person intimately. Well, that's funny that you just say that. This is just a side, because one of the descriptions that Paul uses to describe the relationship between Christ and the church, which is his body, is one of a marriage. So to say that he is married to the actual church, to say that he is the bridegroom and we are the bride. So we see that he wants that type of relationship, that type of intimacy. But to have that type of intimacy, we still are not clear on what does it mean to like be that intimate. Because in the Hebrew, to know what yada, it means to know by intimacy or to encounter experience, right? To know. But in the Greek, which you gotta understand, in the Old Testament, it is written in Hebrew, right? The New Testament is written in Greek, right? So that word new, the way John writes it when he is ascribing to Jesus, it is Ginōskō, which it means to come to know, to recognize by experience and progressive relationship. All right. So I know what you're saying. Well, what are you saying here, Ricky? Like, what are you trying to convey when you say the word no? Understand that the Hebrews and the Greeks, they had two different views of knowing, right? So the way the Hebrews perceived knowing is through intimacy and covenant walking with God, right? So they walked with God. Well, Greek view of the word no was more of a intellectual or a pride or status they use, because I know that because in Corinthians 8:1, it talks about don't become so puffed up when it is speaking to the people that are in the Greek language, like they're in the Greek culture. So it's known to when you become more knowledgeable in something that you look at yourself higher than somebody else. And Paul is saying, don't do that. So we know that that was the case, like the different knowings, right? But what Jesus is letting us know is that knowing is a perception word, but the deep is deeper than just knowing, right? Knowing is perception word. It's saying that it's perception through experience, perception that builds confidence, and perception that builds trust. In other words, to know him is to trust him even without proof. To know him is to trust him even without the proof or evidence. So what we understand here, that Jesus is not saying that I want you to abolish knowing God, or I want you to know me more than you know God. Jesus is saying that together, I want you to yada and I want you to Ginōskō, right? So yada is the foundation, right? He's saying that I want you to build off of what you know about God. But understand, Ginōskō is the process to progressively recognize and grow in Him. So basically, Jesus just wants you to put those two together and say, Jesus wants us to know Him so deeply that His word is enough and to keep on knowing Him more as we walk with Him. Because let me tell you, the thing that happens with us in relationships is that we get lazy. We feel like we know somebody. We feel like that we have experienced enough of them. We feel like that we know their ins and outs. We know their families. We see them at work. We get casual with them. You might say that about your boss. You might have had a experience where you thought your boss was here, but as you got to know them, you felt like they were a real person, and you kind of started to lose a little respect for them because you felt like you could have casual conversations or things like that. Or you had a friendship where you respected certain boundaries in the friendship, but as you begin to know and saw their flaws or saw certain type of ways that they move, you lost the type of respect that you had for them that you had in the beginning of that type of friendship. So let's be real here. Like, the relationship thing is a real thing. And Jesus said, listen, I want you to know me so deeply. I want you to know about me so deeply that the word I speak to you, you take me at it. Not just believing, not just having faith in it, but you trust it enough to keep knowing me more and to grow deeply with me. So, what do we take from this? How many times have you asked God for a sign? How many times have you said, God, if this is for me, like if you have this for me, show me something. When God is saying, trust me enough to get to know me intimately and deeply enough to where when I say something, you don't look for proof. You don't look to understand. You don't look to other people's opinion. Trust my word enough. Trust my word that my word is enough. Understand this, that knowing God, knowing him is trusting his word. But not just trusting his word, resting in his word. What does it mean to rest in his word? It means that once his word is spoken, or once you read his word and you come to understand his word, and you can only understand it by studying it. And it has to be in you, like it has to become a part of you. It has to become a relationship where his word reads you and you read it. Let it rest in you enough to where whatever he tells you, whatever he directs you, whatever he tells you to move, you know that it is enough. I know it's kind of crazy. You're like, how did you get all these things? It only came by me studying his word. And I was able to see what it means, or I was able to perceive it right. Perceive it how he wanted to say it. I pray that this helped you. And I look forward to next week where we will continue this series. Listen, we have went from believing God to faith in God to what happens when doubt comes to the identity that we find in God to now trusting God. Next week, we're going to talk about being obedient to God. I hope this blessed you. Um, I, if you made it this far, I'm so grateful. You don't understand the time I've spent to study, and I pray that this was shown in a simplistic way. And listen, if you got any other questions or anything that will help you understand what I was talking about, or I wasn't clear in what I was saying, please feel free to drop it in a comment. Also, like and help me subscribe, man, because it really does my heart well just to, not that I'm doing it for it, but I always wonder if it helps somebody. I kind of have that wonder. I'm human too, still, and we're all in this together. And I hope you see that through just this relationship that we have. So peace. See you next time.